now, our feature presentation.
Good evening. Hello and welcome to Focus Testing. I don't remember what fucking show I'm on. Today, whose voice is this?
It sounds kind of like Vincent Price.
It sounds a little bit like Vincent Price trying to do a Morgan Freeman impression.
Yeah, it does. I like the intersection there.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Focus Testing. My name is Morgan Freeman. And today with me, as sometimes, is Matt Storrs.
Hi, everybody.
So, Matt, you're a comedian. Make with a ha-ha.
Okay. I am a big fan of Vincent Price.
Good. Perfect. So this is a show about films. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of a film?
I've heard of them. I've heard multiple at once. Well, in a theater on either side because the walls were too thin.
You ever been to the Angelica and heard the subways?
I have, yes.
Soothing in the middle of like a political drama.
Absolutely. I'm eating an empanada and hearing the subway below me and, being like, oh, that's a really good actor.
How are you?
Doing pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a nice day. I mean, it's not a nice day out, but
Every day is a nice day when we're together.
that's true. That's true. And the fact that the soil is being enriched with the nutrients of the water is probably good. Also, it's not going to smell as bad. It is getting into the summertime.
That is true. Also, there's no soil in New York.
There isn't.
There's all concrete.
It is all concrete. I mean, it is free kale season here in New York.
Pardon?
Oh, you don't know about free kale season.
J'excuse.
Okay, so in the fancy areas of New York where they do have soil, one of the common things...
Gowanus.
Lower Manhattan and mid-Manhattan. I guess Midtown also has it. But they'll have planters where they'll have kale. And it'll be white kale, green kale, and purple kale. And it is an ornamental kale, but it is still perfectly edible. And so especially if like you fry it or bake it or anything like that, some people that I may or may not know will
or may or not be in this room.
May or may not be in this room. Who could say? When they are in...
Anything is possible through the power of Christ.
Anything is possible. And so those things, they will just out and about. They got an extra bag. They'll just pop those kales
Hell yeah, dog.
into their bag and go home and bake with it, cook with it, whatever.
Make sweet love to it.
With oil. Olive oil. You have to massage it into the leaves. And you bake it, and then you got little kale chips, and then the folks come back and they're like, well, our kale's gone. You got any extra kale we can put back in there? And they're like, maybe we should not plant kale here. That's why you see a lot more tulips this season.
Oh,
that's not true. It's just tulip season.
I just assumed everyone had played Animal Crossing and gotten excited about that.
Right.
I recently referred to Animal Crossing as the Tiger King of video games.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Because everyone really got into it. Because someone was like, it's not very fun. And I was like, well, it was like, oh, we're pretending to go outdoors when we couldn't.
Exactly. It brought in the people that were big into Animal Crossing were going to go into it anyway. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, hey, here's a pitch. Everybody come on in.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, you know what? That does sound fun.
We all have an extra $600 to buy a Switch right now.
Right. Oh, yeah. Let's get it.
What was the first movie you remember seeing in the theater?
Let's see. I remember seeing Jurassic Park.
Now, you're not that much older than I am.
Right.
You should not have been seeing Jurassic Park when it came out in theaters.
Oh yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
So Jurassic Park, I like dinosaurs a lot. My parents were very easy to convince. I was the third son, and so they're like, well, it'll be fine. And
fuck it.
Yeah. Let's see. I would say, Probably some like cartoon or something like that. I don't know what it would be, between, 87 to like 93, 94, what would have come out in that time period cartoon wise.
Aladdin.
Yeah, probably Aladdin then. Yeah, I would assume Aladdin. When was, maybe Lion King?
I just Googled Aladdin, and unfortunately the first thing came up was the number one, the recent film.
Right.
Then the Broadway show.
Right.
And then now I have to put in animated.
Right. Or cartoon.
The shame of it all. It
Right.
came out in 1992.
Yeah, so probably I would assume that would be my first real memory of it.
It's exactly an hour and 30 minutes. A perfect picture.
Oh yeah, they do a good work.
Yeah, they do. So probably Aladdin, but maybe Jurassic Park. And
Yeah.
how was that experience? See, that's more important to me, Jurassic Park.
Yeah, so Jurassic Park, it was great. It's frightening. And it established the dynamic of my parents putting their hands across my face at various points. But my favorite, I'm going to tell you it anyway.
Yeah.
I saw Fargo in the theaters in Prescott, Arizona with my dad. I believe it was Prescott, may have been Flagstaff. So that came out, I think, when I was like 12 or something like that. And we were a Coen Brothers family, loved raising Arizona, and saw that a ton of times as a kid and subsequently. And so my parents were like, oh, looking at the newspaper, oh, there's a new Coen Brothers movie coming out. We should go see that. And so we were on a little mini vacation, and my dad's like, oh, we'll go to the movie theater, me and Matt, and go see this movie. And then as we walked out, he's like, I can't believe we didn't walk out. I can't believe we sat through that whole movie. I am so sorry. I'm so embarrassed that I brought you here. And I'm like, and I remember distinctly talking to my dad being like, oh no, it's fine. Like, I get that those things are bad. He's like, right, but you shouldn't have been exposed to that. That's completely inappropriate. And I'm like, oh. And then I saw it later, and I'm like, oh no, Dad, we can walk out of movies.
You should never be exposed to a Minnesotan accent.
Oh yeah. So that, but I mean, also like it, with the upbringing, it's like, oh, this is what our, my dad's my dad's parents, when they first came to the country, that's where they moved, and then they subsequently moved to Arizona. So
that's a wild jump.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, you know what? We can do something different. We can have warmth. And
I don't believe in that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And so they headed out southwest, so it seems, and yeah, so that is probably my. Yeah, so I guess it's trauma is my memories of my first memories of film.
Isn't Fargo rated R?
Oh yeah.
How is that not a deterrent?
So the third son.
I am also a third child.
Yeah, so it's okay. Yeah, we messed up the other two. This will be fine. He's.
Could possibly get worse.
Yeah, his frontal lobe is so developed, even for a 12-year-old. He's gonna be fine.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I don't know what the justification was, but I do know that anytime I bring it up with my dad, he gets so embarrassed. It immediately goes back to it, and he's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I did that. I can't." And it's just like he curls up in a knot.
For what it's worth, I had a very similar experience with my father. He was watching Pulp Fiction. It was on TV.
Right.
So he's like, yeah, well, it's edited for TV. And my mom still was like, what are you doing? Right. Because she came in, and I sat down like right before it. It was the GIMP scene. Mm-hmm. And I'm 8. And I was like, well, what's happening here, Dad? And luckily, we had watched Roots together the year before. And he goes, okay. Also not good. Yeah. Because I remember there's a scene with the actor that plays Pa Ingalls, and I was like, well, what's happening here? It's like, oh, well, he's raping this woman. I'm like, oh, what's that? It's like, well, when you force someone to have sex with you, it's very bad. And so cut to a year later, I'm like, well, what's happening here? And they're like, oh, remember the thing that I explained to you during It's that. And I'm like, but they're both, everyone's a guy in the scene. It's like, yeah, sometimes that happens too. Which was the introduction to the concept of homosexuality to me, which was less than stellar, shall we say.
Unfortunately, that is very often how homosexuality is introduced. I remember when Brokeback came out, talking to my dad about it, and him having apprehensions about seeing it because it's like, we're Western, we're Arizona, we're this is a Western, that is and then he finally saw it and he's like, that was one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. And I'm like, yeah, like, Dad, like, whoever you talk to about this is a bigot. You are not a bigot. You're fine. And they came at it from the this isn't, there aren't enough horses in this film and there aren't enough gunfights, and it's like
Sam Elliott over there. Listen, I don't much care for this.
I reckon. So unfortunately, so that's the nice thing about my family, though. It's like, oh yeah, like we might have had misconceived notions or whatever, but we were flexible in that we would overcome them and like be exposed to film and be like, oh, I'm unfortunate, I'm uncomfortable seeing that, and it's like, oh yeah, no, I recognize the beauty of that and like the great story and great acting of everything. So it was very nice.
Well, that is. My mother did come in when we were watching Pulp Fiction, and she goes, Tristan, get out of the room. And then as I'm walking out, she goes, Herbert, you shouldn't even be watching this. And I was like, that movie must be powerful, sinful.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then having seen the film much later on, as an adult, I was like, oh, the only sin here is the fifth act. It's so boring. It's too long. Oh my God, Quentin, come on.
Yeah.
So, I have trivia questions for you.
Okay.
The first question is, what's my favorite movie?
What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
A film I started but have never seen, but apparently it's ants. That's all I know. Is that true?
No.
Okay.
No. Let's see.
No, that's that's not a correct response, but it's a response.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I would probably say Woman Under the Influence by John Cassavetes.
Okay, I would not have said that.
Great film. It's available. The entire thing is available on YouTube, and it is the Criterion release. So have fun with that. If you had to kill a Marvel character, which one and why?
Movies or comics?
Well, it's a film podcast.
Okay,
Matthew.
so well, and they would not be in any subsequent movies.
Forever
so
gone.
I would say, that's a very hard question. I would probably go with. Oh, see, because I want to say that, but then that's not fun.
Well, then just.
No. So
I would be fun.
I would do. No, this is such a hard question.
I bring the heat.
You do bring the heat. I would say Doctor Strange.
Can I tell you that was also my response? Kind of unnecessary, superfluous character.
I think so, and I think that he does more harm than good overall. And
ironic, him being a doctor and all.
Right, exactly. And I think that there are other storylines with magic and magicians and stuff like that would be heightened by coming at it from a different perspective of somebody other than Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think about Benedict Cumberbatch's quote unquote American accent?
He tries.
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely an attempt.
How many slaps in the face would you take in order to be the star in an A24 film?
Who's slapping me?
I've said everything about the question.
Okay.
It can't be someone that you would like to slap you. Is the
I wouldn't
thing.
want anybody to slap me.
Really, you and I are living different worlds, my friend.
Yeah, I'm not a slap person. It gets me into a stress response.
I
And
think that's pretty normal.
yeah, but like a stress response of like,
Sorry, of what?
of,
Thank you.
and I'm being attacked. But I'd say, upwards of 100.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. In a row, or throughout your entire life?
I mean, I could do 100 slaps in a row, depending upon the circumstances. But like if it was over the course of the production, like you had to get slapped once a day over the course of filming or multiple times, like the beginning of the day, the end of the day, I could do that too.
What movie monster would you want to fuck the most?
So I think probably a Dracula.
Okay, Dracula.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the one that makes the most sense is like Gary Oldman's Dracula. But like
Okay,
not
so-
the icky one, like when he's like, "Oh hi, I have the cool purple glasses."
So when you say a Dracula, you don't mean a vampire.
Oh, in general, vampire. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Like-
because I say Dracula for when I just mean vampire in general.
Oh yeah, a Dracula. Yeah,
A Dracula.
absolutely. I'd say that. Because that would be fun. Because like depending upon the circumstances, he has his brides, so to speak. So that would just be like a party. In a lot of ways. And then in like Dracula 2000, I want to say, there's a whole thing. I don't know
Is
if
that like when he's a robot?
Oh no, so that's when Sick Boy from Train Spotting, whose name escapes me right now.
Ewan?
No, not Ewan, the other guy.
There's two Ewans. In
Oh,
that
so it's the Jamie, the one with 3 names.
Oh, not Jamie Lee Curtis, but yes,
Yeah.
the other Jamie.
Yeah. So he is in it, and it's not a good film. And I believe that's the one that has 7 of 9 from Star Trek in it as one of the brides, or
Okay.
of the vampire Dracula, and it's very weird because by the time it had come out, I think she was 7 of 9, and it's like, why are you in such a small role? And it makes it feel like, oh, you got your part significantly cut down. I might be completely off base with this. I might be misremembering it, but I remember being like, I'm very attracted to you even more so as a vampire. Oh, okay. This is a fun set of things.
We need. I might have to unpack this on deviantart.com.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, what character do you want to go down on the most? Again, what character?
I don't.
And it cannot be the golem from the movie Noah with Russell Crowe. I mean, it can be, but why?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
That's blasphemous. Why would you even say that, Matt?
Right. I don't. I'm not entirely sure who I would want to go down on. Oh man, that's a fun thing to unpack. I think I would probably say one of the Twi'lek women from the Star Wars.
Oh yeah. Like
Seems,
Ula. Yeah.
that would be very like just let's see the extent of how humanoid are you? Because that's one thing they don't talk about.
Very.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing they don't talk about with all these humanoid aliens and all these Star Treks and Star Wars. What do those genitals look like?
I mean, based off of my extensive research on deviantart.com, pretty much the same from my understanding. Yeah. Now, conversely, what character would you want to go down on you? These questions are pretty horny.
Yeah, and that's what I'm recognizing.
Don't worry, I have some non-horny questions coming up.
Okay. We'll find a way to make him horny.
Oh, for sure.
Let's see. I think what is the one of the? Oh no! So those are violent. I wouldn't want that.
Can you please tell me what that was?
Oh yeah, the Predator.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because like,
yeah.
oh, that would be hurtful.
Yeah, it would be.
But it's like, oh, that minus the teeth being everywhere. Let's see. I'd say probably a. Oh, I don't. What is one of those?
An Oompa Loompa?
Maybe I don't know about an Oompa Loompa. That would feel weird. Like they're already being exploited by Willy Wonka. I don't want to be involved in that. Like
you don't want to add to their pain.
Yeah, I don't want to add to their pain. I want to like help them form a union.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
And the only way you can do it is if you come, and that's
part of labor relations law in the UK. There's somebody that files the paperwork. They have to certify that they came at some point in the paperwork. I would probably say, probably somebody that played a president.
Okay.
Don't know what president necessarily.
Not the late great Robin Williams.
No.
Not him as Theodore Roosevelt from Night at the Museum.
Well, technically he wasn't Theodore Roosevelt.
Oh, he was a wax figure.
He was a wax figure, and the wax figure had been repurposed.
That's fair. Okay.
So he had imposter syndrome. So
has there ever been a film about Taft?
I don't believe so. I think that he has been in jokes in other stuff, but I don't think that there's really ultimately the problem with Taft is it's very hard to tell a compelling story about him because it is very much a tragedy, or not necessarily a tragedy, but a very, very sad thing. And then also like a lot of his actions were pretty repugnant in terms of some of the choices that he made.
Sure.
And like some of the ways in which he guided the country. So you have to kind of tell it in the context of Teddy Roosevelt anyway. And so then it's just an immediate clash of those two styles. But there are, are aspects of Taft where it's, you feel bad for him, but then it's like, oh, but you're also doing bad things. Businesses are bad, especially back then.
Who out of the cast of Lord of the Rings, who out of the characters of Lord of the Rings has the best hair?
Gimli.
Fascinating. Expound.
It is beautiful.
Okay.
And it is differentiated. You don't see a lot of other, especially in Lord of the Rings, you don't see other characterizations, versus like The Hobbit, for instance, where everybody's around. But
you're talking about dwarves.
Dwarves, yes, yeah. The dwarven people, and it is. It evokes the character more so than anybody else's hair.
That is true. It's visual storytelling.
Right.
How old were you when you learned that they're all on wigs?
Oh, I mean, I knew from the. Yeah, I mean, I knew from the get-go.
You had foresight. I, up until probably within the last 10 years, I was like, oh no, Viggo's just in a wig, even though he could have that long of hair.
Right.
What?
Oh yeah, I what that's interesting is that like
I knew
his
the
hair
Hobbits
would be.
had.
Oh yeah, but like his hair, like it would be thicker. Even that's the thing. It's kind of his hair in that is like very like thin.
I mean, he is 80.
Yeah.
So one would assume, and he's probably not eating the best. None of them are.
Right.
Particularly the Hobbits. That was something that always kind of bothered me, is because they, asked Sean Astin to put on a bunch of weight, but none of the other Hobbits, and all of the other Hobbits are described as being like portly.
Right.
So it's like, well, why did he single Sean out? There's that moment in Two Towers where like Frodo has Sting to his throat, and during one of the takes, Peter goes, okay, put the sword under Sean's chin, and Elisha just goes, which one? And it's so mean. was very mean.
Oh wow.
Yeah, right. Do you know who your first movie crush was?
Let's see. Maybe Laura Dern in Jurassic Park.
Very good choice.
Then Eliza Dushku in Bring It On is definitely there.
Okay.
Eliza Dushku in anything. She's a treasure for the world and the universe. Very, very talented. And yeah, I'd say those probably. I mean, I think I got a little. There was a tinge of attraction to like Christopher Lambert in The Highlander, because like he's very mysterious. He's got the accent. He's all these things. There's swords.
There are swords.
There's a Queen soundtrack that is just banging. It's an amazing soundtrack. It's possibly better than the movie. Which I was a big Highlander fan and all that. I watched so much Highlander stuff. Even went to one of the Highlander sequels so in the Highlander, I don't know how much.
I thought there can only be
one, but surprisingly they keep finding more. There's also a thing where Mario Van Peebles is a Highlander, that was or one of the chosen folks, that was like frozen in a block of ice.
For like since millennia gone by.
Yeah, and so Christopher Lambert is like living in like Santa Fe or something, and then global warming or capitalists unthaw Mario Van Peebles, and then he's like, oh no, there's another person, I gotta go kill him. But Mario Van Peebles has like magic. It's a very problematic movie in a lot of ways, but I just ate up all the Highlander movies, and some of the show.
There's a show?
There's a show.
Oh my gosh.
It's yeah, I mean,
isn't that the one where Sean Connery plays a Spaniard?
Yes.
The first one?
Yeah.
Inexplicably?
Yeah. And then also he comes back in the second one, which may or may not be a fever dream. The second one is a great movie to watch and be like, why? What How
did this occur?
How did this occur? How many drugs were these people on?
Not enough, weirdly. They stopped taking their medication.
They stopped taking the medication.
I have a final question for you. And this, for me, is the most important because I think it indicates everyone's character. Why is Austin Powers so sexy?
Confidence.
All right.
Yeah. He's just unapologetically confident, and then ultimately respectful when it matters.
It's true. It's true. So now comes the time where we try to improvise a movie based off of a random word. I have a random word generator on my iPad here. And for us today, the word is pity. So, what's this film about pity, Matthew?
So you've seen The Life of Walter Mitty.
I've seen parts of the original with Danny Kaye.
Okay, so it's...
No, I think I've seen the whole thing with Danny Kaye.
Okay.
Puck it up.
So this is a take off of that movie.
Okay.
But it's pity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the name of the person, but it's instead of Mitty, it's pity.
Mm-hmm.
And so he or she, they go around and they're
sad at other people instead of like exposing dreams and like experiences. They just see tragedy.
Yeah, they just see tragedy
and they're like, oh man,
this is really sad and this is unfortunate, but they take pity on those people, and then by having such great empathy, pull those people out of those sad experiences and take it. It's like The Giver.
Sure. Let's say we both have read that.
Okay. So basically in that we have...
Does someone like work as a cipher for like upsetness, and they hold other people's sadness within them so the sadness doesn't reside in the other people?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so
cool,
society can live their lives without the burden of sadness and regret and horribleness. And so that's what, Richard Pitty.
Richard Pitty?
Yeah, that sounds like
Rick Pitty?
Rick Pitty. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. They're
Yeah.
experiencing these horrible things, and they're thinking that their life is, they have a crisis. They have a crisis, and they're like, I have such a good life. That's where we start. We have a billionaire that's like, oh no, I haven't done anything good for the world. And so they decide to figure out a way to take all of the sadness out of these people's experiences and taking pity on them and taking and lifting them up through financial donation, and also through giving those financial donations, he realizes he takes all of that sadness into him and alleviates it.
I see. I like it. I think it's a fun premise. I feel like it should be an ancient beyond belief actor, right?
Okay.
Because he's got to be at the end of his life,
Right. He's
And
trying
like,
to make up for it.
Yeah, I've had a good life, but I've also spent it. Like it's like almost like, okay, so what actually happens after Christmas Carol?
Right.
I was gonna say the 12 Days of Christmas, which is not the name of the book nor the film. So I like that a lot. So who do we want as? I'm not sold on Richard yet. If is it his last name Pitty as well?
I mean, that doesn't necessarily need to be the name.
Okay.
That is just where I'm like, oh, we need to. There needs to be a balance.
Okay.
In the cinematic universe, there's two MIDI movies now.
Yeah.
We need
Two MIDI movies.
Yeah.
We need to stop them.
We gotta stop them. But we got two of those. We need one where it is somebody feeling guilty. We need more millionaires and billionaires feeling guilty for what they've done to the world.
That is true. So who can convincingly play a billionaire that's sad? That hasn't also always already played Bruce Wayne.
Right. So I mean, we have Mike. It might be too old, but Michael Caine.
I say not old enough.
Yeah, not old enough. So we could go with who could we get? Who's another very old actor?
I guess there's Sir Patrick Stewart. There's Ian McKellen. Someone who like. Okay, so who's an actor that you always are surprised they're still alive? I was going to say Kirk Douglas, but didn't he just recently die?
I think he did.
Yeah, dang it.
We could always go with Michael Douglas. He's still very old.
He is very old.
And he
Still goes down on people, though.
Still going down. And he has a history of being in movies where he's a very rich
Greed
individual.
is good.
Yep.
Famously.
And Greed 2, Cruise Control, not as good.
Okay, so Michael Douglas
Perfect.
is playing, I say, Schmalter Pitty, and he's Jewish, obviously.
Yes, of course.
With a name like that, no, is that it's stereotypical at the least.
Yeah,
it's fine. But is Michael Douglas a goy? I feel like he's like Irish or something.
I have no idea.
Anyway, let's not ruminate on people's ethnicities.
Let's not.
So Michael Douglas is a billionaire who regrets. Of course I say this, but I think having Randy Newman do the soundtrack would be good.
Of course. Yeah, I think that, because you're going to have some levity and humor in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you're going to have a degree of like self-reflection that I think Randy Newman can, hit all of those marks.
For sure. And he's, famously does a lot of soundtracks that are very good. So Michael Douglas, I would assume we have to have you have to have the first act is him realizing that he's not fulfilled and he needs to be philanthropic, right? So, and then he goes to the first one. The first act is him realizing that, and then him going to the first person donating money and realizing that he now actually feels all this pain. What's the first charitable or unfortunate situation?
I think that it would make the most sense that it be somebody close to him. So probably somebody in the business. Like he just gets exposed to like his caretaker. Like he sees that their, home life is difficult or something.
Okay.
And he is like, oh, I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you this money and help you raise your kid or whatever. And then he realizes as he does it and helps fix that situation, he's like, oh, I get some of that pain back. And then he kind of goes from there.
I think that's a very subtle, nice one to start off with. Like, he just starts, like, crying for no reason, and he's
Right.
like, I don't understand what's going on. And his caretaker's like, well, you have early onset dementia, and that's why I'm here. No, but, like, I think that's a great small one. Now, what I also would love is not exactly a montage, but I feel like at some point he has to go to someone who has like very bad gastroenteritis or something,
Right.
and it ends up like, because he needs to test out, much like when Spider-Man gets his powers, like how far does this go, and he like sees someone with indigestion and he's like, okay, let me help this person, and then he just for like 15 to 25 minutes of this film is just shitting himself.
Oh yeah, he decides to donate money to a gastroenterologist research facility and helps hundreds of people, of people, all at once, because that's where he decides to donate to a hospital, and the area in which he donates is a gastroenterology wing because he wants it named after him.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I want a wing of a hospital. What do you have available? I'm like, well, gastroenterology. He's like, fine, I'll take it. And then he's like, oh my God. And he doesn't realize it. He tries to get the money back. And he can't do it. They're like, oh, it's you already signed the documents.
Yeah. And so he's just shitting himself.
Right. But he's, as time goes on with all of these things that he's doing, especially the physical ones, it's adding to his slate of diseases. So he's taking disease from the world and, taking the hurt from these people. But, then he's, that you get, the thing that, most movies are uncomfortable putting on screen. You get to have the colostomy bag.
Perfect.
In the movie.
The whole time.
And the whole time, once that happens, it's like, all right, yeah, you're getting, we're not shying away from how these things happen.
For sure. Who do you think plays his caretaker?
I think that having somebody, significantly younger who would look good in scrubs, so they have to have good shoulders.
Yes.
And, I think that... having somebody like having a male caretaker makes sense in a lot of ways, because I think that it could very easily be construed as, a degree of horniness of giving the money initially.
Oh, yeah.
And so like having, I mean, I guess we could still have that horniness there. It would be dependent upon Mr. Douglas's willingness to add that as a subplot. But ultimately, I think that having somebody like...
Who's the fellow that plays Shang-Chi? Do you know his name? He's also in Kim's. I think he'd be good.
Yeah, and he's got, he would look good in scrubs. He has very good shoulders.
He's got a good demeanor.
He seems caring, and he's a very good actor, so he would be good. I think that he... that also gets a little bit of humor and levity, because he's got those, that comedy background where he'd be able to do that really well. And so, yeah, I think that could be an option.
Yes, I think that's good. And then for the people that he's working with with the gastroenterology, I feel like having someone very, very refined as he's shitting himself would be very good. So like a Dame Judi Dench maybe, or Meryl Streep, or someone who is like very dignified. But I also do feel as though for whatever reason, I feel very strongly, instinctually, like Patton Oswalt has to be somewhere in this.
Oh yeah, I mean, as I think he could be the hospital administrator of some sort. I realized that this movie is ultimately a mix between Brewster's Millions and Scrooged.
Yes.
So that's I want to state that.
I was thinking it's almost also A Wonderful Life. There's
Yeah,
it's all within that same
it's in
genre.
it's under that umbrella. And I think that, ultimately he gets, as time progresses, he gets to a point. Go ahead.
I think the ending.
Yes.
He goes and he speaks with people in a mental institution.
Right.
And he talks to a bunch of people with depression, and then he kills himself at the end.
That could be.
I mean, I think that's funny and weird, but it's also like,
yeah, that would be hard to sell. It's going to be a difficult movie to sell. Anyway,
regardless.
Yeah.
I almost want to switch Michael Douglas for Anthony Hopkins.
Okay. Yeah.
Because again, that level of refinedness, and
Right.
then he's pissing and shitting himself, and
Right.
there's the embarrassment, but.
Yeah, I'm game for whatever there.
But
I think that getting ultimately going, and because ultimately what the overarching narrative is the story of end of life care, but on a grand scale of this one person is trying to take and ease all these people's pain while going through the stages of end of life.
yes.
And so then ultimately the decision, we can leave it fishy as to whether what he does at the end, whether it's,
Big
there's
fishy, if you will.
big fishy, whether or not there's some pills left on his bedside table, that he, Anthony Hopkins known for staring longingly.
Really.
So that is an aspect that we could play off of.
I think that's good. I'm going to give you an alt as well. It's all this stuff, and then he gets to that point where he does want to kill himself, but then decides to keep on living, and it's an uplifting, even though life is full of all this pain, I've lived through all of this, but I've helped people, and that makes life worth living.
Right.
But that's very Patch Adamsy. It's actually not, because that film ends very sadly.
Yeah.
But it's very sort of late 90s, early 2000s uplifting film. So it's a little hokey. So
Right.
Do we want to go with an art house or a more hokey sort of feel good?
I think that we're gonna have Randy Newman. We're gonna have Anthony Hopkins. We're gonna have all of these actors and circumstances that are pretty heavy,
Except for the pissing and shitting himself.
Right? Yeah.
That's a brief moment of levity in the picture. Yeah.
For 20 to 25 minutes, and it's the whole act of the movie is him dealing with that, because I think that should be his recognition of I did too much, or did I do too much, or did I do enough?
Well, I've taken a physical toll, but mentally it's fine.
Right.
So what's the next step?
Exactly. This can be managed. So I think that I think you could do the art house ending with the philanthropic, last will and testament sort of thing. So he stares longingly as people, he's on his deathbed, so to speak. He's staring longingly at these pills. And as his caretakers and family members and these people are talking to him about what he wants in his will and what he wants to do with the rest of the money, when he passes. So then you can cut from him staring longingly, implying maybe he does die, whatever, to all of these positive and good things happening in the world, in all of these different places. People getting care, people that we've seen, with, knee ailments, they're walking normally or what have you. So that could be...
Jeff Bezos finally fixes his eye.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos finally fixes his eye. Well, I don't really... if he really wanted to, he could.
He would be, yeah.
I feel like it might be a robotic eye, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like, I feel that it very well could
like
be a
Long John Silver from Treasure Planet.
Yeah, I think it might be a robotic eye.
Uh-huh.
Because like he has the money to get that fixed if he wanted to
does.
get it fixed, and it wouldn't be, I don't know what his medical background is, but I presume
He's certainly not a doctor.
Yeah, certainly. But he would be able to get it fixed if he wanted to get it fixed.
That is true. Yeah. But yeah, I like that idea, and like my only concern, despite me having given the offer, is we don't want it to come across as like pro-suicide.
Right, yeah.
It's like if you kill yourself, everyone's life is better. Like we're very close to that right now.
Oh yeah, I guess that is a problem.
But I feel like we show that, then we show all these good things happening, and then we show Anthony Hopkins like talking to a kid.
Right.
And so
right.
And then that kid is so full of joy that he starts to feel a little bit more joy again. And like it's the symbolic, like, you
pass
rebirth.
the torch to a new person, and like literally you can have these people walking around in a park, in a public space, the people that we've seen with knee ailments and everything like that, and it's like, oh no, and then he's like, oh yeah, I'm just out here, I got my cane, I got my walker,
I got my colostomy bag.
I got my colostomy bag. And then he says, goodbye to the nice boy, and he's like, oh yeah, it's it's a very lovely day, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And the boy's like, yeah, and like maybe the boy do a very simple gesture of a boy is running or whatever, playing, skins his knee, and then somebody helps him up and like gives him an ice cream cone. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, it's like, oh, how was the day? I was having fun, and I skinned my knee. It's like, well, he'll get better. Mm-hmm. And then, then he walks away.
Mm-hmm. And then credits as Randy Newman sings It's a Wonderful World.
Yeah.
The only time he's ever done a cover.
Only time.
I like it. I think it's uplifting. I think it's good. I think it's a very solid premise. Do you think that there's anything missing from it as of right now? As it stands, we have
women.
I was going to say there's a staggering lack of diversity, with the exception of Dame Judi Dench.
Right. Yeah. So we probably would want to insert some of that. So most of the, and also end of life care. Most of the family members that typically get into that are female.
Yes.
So I would say most of like the family fill out would be that. And then,
Oh, I know I said Tony Hopkins, but could you imagine if it was, what is his name from Succession, the dad?
Oh, yeah.
Because that would be a nice, like, kind of metatextual turn.
Right.
Oh, what if Logan Roy wasn't a piece of shit?
Right. Yeah, but maybe we just pitch it as the final season of Succession.
Where he's pissing and shitting. But yeah, I think so as well.
They already put the piss in that one episode.
Is it in the second season? Because if so, I haven't seen it.
Well, he urinates at one point.
Hell yeah, dog. More piss in TV, I say.
Right.
But I agree. There's a staggering lack of women in the picture. So I feel like also, we can add probably a few like smaller beats in the beginning as well, of like him doing more with people.
Right. Yeah. Giving stuff out to people around, and like, trying to help, like maybe, give. He's frustrated with his family, but figuring out the right way to support and give money to his family, or give support to his family. And that could be the recognition of like, oh, it's not just money that I'm giving out. It's like time and like support.
Mm-hmm. I feel like at some point he should meet with another older person who's like, I wish I just had one more year to see my family, because they haven't been around. Right. And then he like literally gets older and he gives them a year.
Right.
And I feel like also, were this to be a slightly different film, it would star Jim Carrey, and he would be putting on the affects of everyone he's helped. And unfortunately, the scene in my mind is like he helps like an older black woman, and all of a sudden he's doing that shtick, and that is an unfortunate part of me that recognizes 90s comedies.
Right.
But I think Yeah, I think we can have like add a bunch of like little segments, and that could fill out not only the runtime but also different casts of characters that all come much like Big Fish style at the end.
Right.
You know, but overall, I think it's good. And so the title can't be Secret Life of Walter. The unfortunate what is it? The unbearing lightness of Walter.
Yeah.
What is the subtitle to Birdman again?
I don't recall.
Remember, because they have that Nick Cage movie with a
it's
similar title.
Yeah.
But I feel like we got to get a solid title to hook these producers in from Lionsgate. Clearly, the only production house.
Yes. Colostomy. The Colossus colostomy. Colossal giving. Because you want to make sure people know there's going to be a colostomy bag.
Yeah.
But I think that a good life or something, something simple.
It's not a wonderful life, but it's okay.
It's an okay life.
It's an okay life. I do feel like the ending maybe should be, we see Anthony Hopkins or whatever, Logan Roy or whomever it is, and then it just cuts to Mr. T going, I pity that fool.
Oh yeah.
And then credits.
Right.
But yeah, what about the unbearable lightness of, I think just calling it the unbearable lightness of Walter Mitty, and so it's like people are like very confused going into it. But it's an art house film.
Yeah.
Who better to direct it, do you think? Who
I would say,
because we got our Wes Andersons, we got our who does Marriage Story? That guy, whose name I can't remember, unfortunately.
Braumbach.
Yeah, Noah Baumbach.
Yeah, we could do him. I think that
Greta Gerwig.
Greta. We get busy with the Barbies.
Busy with the Barbies.
But I think that we could go with somebody. Who are the brothers that?
Not the Coens.
Not the Coens. The ones that did Good Time.
The Safdie brothers.
I think it should be a Safdie brothers movie.
Yes, and I think that's great because that creates an entirely different vibe than what we've been setting.
Yeah,
and I think it would push their boundaries, and I think the level of chaos.
Because you have to, because it would go off the rails, and that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, specifically again with the pissing and shitting, then it just escalates, and then it's just fine.
Right, then it's just, this is okay.
Yeah, and we're all fine here, and it's therefore it must be set in New York because they refuse to go anywhere. I just remember that Ben Safdie, I believe, is in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and I'm excited about that.
That'd be great.
All right, well we got a picture. I'll email Josh and Betty Safdie and see what they think.
Yeah, I think they'll go for it.
I think so too. Well, thank you for being on. Where can people find you? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I can be found on all social media at MT Storrs. That's MTSTORRS. And I hope to see you on the internet.
Yeah, this has been a heck of a lot of fun. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
I love stupid doo-doo concepts.